Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. 𝘰𝘮𝘰𝘵𝘪𝘰𝘯𝘭, your academic career advancement coach. And welcome to our annual Summer Yay episode. If you've been with me for a while, you know that each summer I set aside time to say this: take a breath. That's just it. One deep, nourishing, unapologetic breath. Because whether you're listening on a beach, between summer classes, at your desk, or in your bed with the shades drawn, I want this episode to feel like an exhale. And this year, we're aligning it with our season 5 theme, the emotional cost of excellence. Because let's be honest, excellence has a cost. Many of us, in fact, gosh, we know about it, but perhaps it's cost us more than we ever expected. Things like sleep, joy, connection, and frankly, our own peace of mind. So today we're going to talk about restoring, and we're going to talk specifically about restoring what ambition, expectation, and overwork have taken. And we're going to do it with joy, we're going to do it with honesty, and we're going to do it with care. So, how are you really? Now, sometimes we get asked this question just in casual conversation. How are you? How you doing? And most of the time, we're socialized to just say we're fine. Really, we might have a lot going on underneath, but because it's just something we hear and then we just answer sort of like rote, right? But I want you to have this conversation with yourself, and I'm here in your ear. So, how are you really? Not your elevator pitch, not your conference voice, not the I'm fine you say when you're really on the edge of burnout. So, just between us, and it's just you right now, right? In this moment, check in and take a deep breath and ask yourself, how are you really? Now, some of us may feel like right now we're okay, but I just really want us to check in with ourselves, with our trusted inner circle, because maybe you're doing okay and maybe somebody else isn't. And we know all too well that some of us are no longer here because of things that have been going on, right? So this past academic year was a lot, and sometimes it seems like we're saying that over and over again, but really, I think, there's been quite a bit going on. And whether you're part of my community or new to the community, a scholar, a faculty, first gen, high achiever of color, administrator, you've likely been managing a number of things this past year. Some of those are related to situational shifting institutional policies and priorities, burnout under the guise of innovation. And this is a real stickler with me. Frankly, all of these are, but I think all too often we hear the word innovation and doing more with less. And it doesn't really, it's not the most effective strategy. It is a strategy, and sometimes institutions and departments are called to do more and be creative, but really, we want to be mindful of what's true innovation and what is hiding behind the term innovation. So we also have likely been managing things like the invisible tax of representation, right? Some of us are in situations where we're hyper visible. And so there's a lot that comes with that. Sometimes students will flock to you because they see you as a trusted resource. Maybe you are the only one there. And then on the other side, people may come to you, administrators or the like, to always get your opinion because you are the only one. So that can be a difficult space to navigate and manage. And I hear that often. And then the next one is really the quiet grief of being excellent and still being unseen. So on the one hand, what I just mentioned was being hyper visible, but on the other hand, there's the piece about, you are really showing up. You are showing up, you're giving all these deliverables, but often you're not recognized, and frankly, you are overlooked or unseen, or the expectation is that you will just be doing more because you can do more. I remember being at a gathering, a conclave, and someone had talked about really being seen and used as like the workhorse or the beast of burden. And I talked about this in some previous episodes. And that is really sad, not only for actual animals who are quote unquote beast of burdens because they bear the weight of a lot more than others. And many times they will die with their yoke still on. And so I would like for you to kind of think through that. I know that is heavy, but we have seen some of our colleagues frankly die at their desk, or haven't had a moment to just sit back and be themselves and not be the one that's always showing up and doing the heavy load. So check in around that, and if that applies to you or someone just monitor it because it comes at a high cost. And even if you don't pay with your life, there are underlying health things that can manifest. And even if you feel like, no, not really, I'm here to tell you that clinically it takes a toll. So there's a physical toll, there's an emotional toll, and sometimes it's too late to do something about it. So I know this is really kind of heavy and deep, but I want to call this out because it doesn't often get named or addressed. So pause, breathe, recognize, and let's call a thing, right? These things have cost us emotionally and likely cost us physically. We don't often pause to name it, so we're doing that now because we must. Once again, I want to really say that excellence isn't meant to cost you your wellness, your joy, or your humanity. So check in with yourself, right? This leads me to the next area. Since we're in July, and you all know, again, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, so let me remind you that this is BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month. This is personal for me. Again, as a licensed clinical psychologist, I know the toll that silence, hyper productivity, and isolation can take, especially for those of us navigating predominantly white or non-inclusive spaces. So here's my gentle PSA. Mental health is health, and it matters. You all know that I often refer to the World Health Organization's definition of health. And I'm paraphrasing at this point, but essentially their definition says that there is no health without mental health. And I'm happy to revisit that time and time again, because we do know that the mind-body connection, there is no separation there. So with that in mind, please remember that mental health is health. Therapy isn't just for crisis, and no, you don't need to earn rest, right? So make the appointment, talk to someone, check in with yourself. You deserve to be whole, not just high functioning, right? So let me just tell you about my summer yay moment. And there's been a few of them, but I think this one is especially dear to me. So just a quick story. Last weekend, I was at my farmer's market, and I really didn't have any plan. I just love going to the farmer's market just because of the ease and the pace, and supporting local, vendors, and just wanted to see what was there. And I love flowers. So as I'm walking through, and I didn't really have a plan for anything other than to just do some shopping for restocking my fridge, I was mindful to not have any podcasts going on in my ears, no errands to cross up, just me, my basket, and some time to wander. And so I stopped by this flower stand that I always walk past. You gotta go past it as you're entering or exiting the farmer's market. And, I do buy flowers from them, but this time I was particularly drawn to some visually stunning, just single stems. And so I wanted to engage my senses. And so I picked up a couple of single stems, and then I also picked up some eucalyptus because I wanted to engage my sense of smell. And got them, got the bundle, got the bunch. And then I came home and I spent a quiet 15 minutes arranging and sort of rearranging while I was listening to Miles Davis playing in the background. And frankly, I smiled the entire time because I was participating in mindfulness, and it wasn't even planned, right? It was just something that happened, and I slowed down and engaged my senses, and even arranging and rearranging them, the touch and the tactile part of my senses were engaged, the smell, the visual, and then afterwards, just to see my flower work of art was really what I would call a summer yay moment. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't social media worthy, but it was my time. And it reminded me who I am outside of the grind. And I think we all need that from time to time, right? So I would like to offer you a summer yay toolkit, right? So here's your toolkit. 5 small things you can do this summer to invite joy without asking for permission, right? So first, dance to the song that made you feel alive in college. Just do it. Don't think about anybody else. Crank up the volume, sing along to it, dance to it, just have fun, right? We all know that the research and the literature talks about engaging in music. And I think the cool thing about it is that you get to pick whatever you want to pick, and you can dance however you want to dance. You don't have to perform for anybody. It's just you letting go and engaging, again, your senses and doing movement. The other thing, and this is again because mainly because these are things that I like to do, but go to a museum or an art walk and go by yourself, right? This is your time to engage yourself and not necessarily have to show up for somebody or make any plans or be responsible for somebody else's joy. This is your joy. So these things that I'm recommending to add to your toolkit, do them by yourself, right? So the next thing is schedule joy like it's a meeting. I recently refreshed my calendar because I just saw how heavy it was with meetings, supervising students, mentees, even meeting with my own team, me to strategize about things that I need to do to go to, the next level of building my company. And I was like, girl, you got a lot going on. Now, don't get me wrong, because you guys know that I will get on a plane and travel and have fun, right? But I think that those are the big things. So, in looking at my schedule, I started to really recognize, you know what, LeBran, you're putting things off to the big trips or the big events. Think about doing something else during the week. So I'm scheduling a few sprinkled in times for joy. And they're like 15-minute increments. And so they're not taking up a lot of time, which of course I'd love to take more time for myself. And I'm working on that. But just getting it in there and really being mindful about it and being sort of accountable to myself is important. So the next thing I would say is buy flowers or pick them and arrange them like art. Again, that's what I did, and these are some things that I like doing, and I think you might like them too. And the next one is unplug for an hour, a full hour. Now, this can be a bit of a challenge because we're all so, married to our devices, we're married to our work, and we feel the responsibility or the need to be sort of ever present. So think about when you can fully detach yourself from anything related to work, your phone, your social media, just an hour to yourself. And maybe replace that with reading a book or journaling or taking a walk, something where you are completely unplugged, right? So even if you're taking a walk, I would challenge you to not have anything going on maybe in your ears, but some music or something that really will bring you joy and not get you back to like the work stuff, or be mindful about that. When I say unplug, I mean unplug for an hour, right? So here's the sort of lightheartedness of it. These were just 5 things that I recommend for your toolbox. But if none of those speak to you, here's the rule. Do what feels good to your nervous system, not what looks good on social media. And I want to emphasize your nervous system, right? So going back to the fifth recommendation that I had to unplug for a full hour is it's really about helping slow you down and think about what's going on without all of these external inputs, right? Even in terms of some, the other things that I suggested about being by yourself, doing them solo, it's because I think you can maximize this time to find joy and really engage yourself if you are alone, right? So again, this is not a thou shalt type of situation. It really is something that feels good to your nervous system. And remember, sometimes we have to retrain our nervous system because we're so used to functioning at the critical level that we don't even realize that we're overworked, overtaxed. I was talking to one of my very good friends recently who was saying, I really need to figure out how to enjoy rest. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. And I think a lot of us kind of struggle with that, right? We feel like we have to be busy, we have to be doing something, or we're not being productive. But as I was studying for my licensing exam years ago, one of the things that we had to remember was really, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and how those both respond to help or hinder us. And one of the things that we sort of were drilled in so that we could always remember was rest is restorative. So if you are lacking in rest, and it doesn't always have to be sleep rest, it just needs to be rest, right? Sleep is a whole nother thing. We'll talk about that in another episode. But right now, we want to think about rest and resting from the demands, resting from the trials and tribulations of the institutions, what the students are going through, all of the grinding we have to do. Just take a rest from that. So let's work on this together, right? I would love to hear from you. What is your summer yay moment this year? Is it a travel memory? Is it a morning ritual? A new hobby you started just because? And maybe you don't have one yet, but summer's not over. So just reach out to me. Tag me on social media at Dr. Loren M. Hill or email me at DRLORENMHILL at theacclivity.com and use the hashtag Summer Yay 2025. You might just hear your story shared on a future episode. So let's celebrate the joy that we create, not just the work that we produce, right? So let me offer you this reframe. Excellence is not the same as exhaustion. Achievement is not the same as alignment. And being successful should never mean being sick. You don't need to earn rest. You are allowed to feel joy when the world is heavy. And boy, has it been kind of heavy lately, right? You are allowed to unplug. You are allowed to say, I am enough today, just as I am. And frankly, that's not selfish, it is sustainable. And I and we need you to sustain yourself because you are enough and you are needed, right? So let's just say this integration, not either slash or. And what do I mean by that? You've heard me say this before. You don't have to choose. You can be brilliant and tender, high achieving and playful, mentor and a mess sometimes, right? You're not a machine. You're a whole human being. So let this be the summer of reintegration. Start small, get still, find your way back to yourself. That's your invitation. Play, rest, feel joy, be human. Take a nap, light a candle, cancel the thing. Schedule your physical, call your therapist. You don't need to be excellent right now. You just need to be you. I'm Dr. Loren M. Hill, your academic career coach, rooting for your brilliance and your balance. Until next time, here's your summer yay, and here's to your continued success.